Finally, I am back home. Oh, hey Darkest. You went somewhere? The fuck are you doing in my bed? What you'd normally be doing? Wasting your life away, playing video games you've already beaten, watching YouTube videos, you know, that kind of thing. Okay. I mean, wow, you didn't have to straight up murder me like that, Em. Oh, Darkest, please, don't be like that. I mean, you asked a question, and I gave you the answer. I gave you my honest answer. Isn't that what you appreciate? Honesty? I fucking hate you. I hate you so much. Oh dear. I've upset you, clearly. I've upset you, something terrible, Darkest. It was never my intention. Here, have this to make up for it. Legend of Spyro. And can you explain the fuck this is for me, please? Can you? Oh, that. Well, consider that a consolation prize on account of your holiday. Yeah, I definitely hate you. And I really hate that hair. Ciao.
Salutations Cinemaskists, I'm Darkest101, and no, I'm not going to explain my absence this time around, because if I do that, I'll have to confront the fact that I lost £3,000 on the first holiday abroad I had in fucking years, and I had an insurance provider that would not fucking pay out for a cancelled return flight home. No, I do not have an issue, you do! Fucking Legend of Spyro, bitch! Ah, the Legend of Spyro Trilogy. Or that time they tried to turn Spyro into a fantasy epic with a good splice of edginess thrown in to appeal to a more angsty crowd. Starring A-list actors like Elijah Wood, Gary Oldman and David Spade, just to increase that legitimacy, just to give it that sense of, yes, Spyro is a serious game now. You know, I can just imagine the production design meeting for this game, just a bunch of executives sat around a big table just going, right, what are the kids into these days? Angst. I mean, you know, when you think about it, it's like, you know, that period of like the mid-2000s to like maybe early 2010s, there was like no defining style. There was like no defining sense of identity. It was just angst. I mean, like, My Chemical Romance was like the biggest thing, but that's not because goths were the prevailing sense of style. It was just because there was such a lack of identity anywhere else that, you know, goths became the most prevalent. What the fuck was I talking about? Spyro. Spyro the Dragon. Iconic. Legend. Mascot for the PlayStation 1. Brainchild of Insomniac Games, who would later go on to develop... But we're here to talk today about the legacy of games that would follow Spyro's departure from Insomniac. We got Spyro, Enter the Dragonfly, a game I will always remember fondly despite it being a broken, unpolished mess, apparently, and a game that PlayStation apparently remember fondly as well because they released Enter the Dragonfly as part of their Platinum Collection for the PlayStation 2. Then there was Spyro, A Hero's Tale. Honestly, I don't know much about this one. Never played it. Maybe I should give it a try one of these days. Who knows? Then there came the reboot.
What is it?
Exactly what I feared. This is what Cinder has done. There are times when all of us need to stand up to danger.
Sparks, look out! I can't, Ignitus. I just learned what I am.
You can, Spyro. You can. You are a purple dragon, a very special creature. But right now, you must fight. It's time to unleash the true dragon within you.
Yeah, you remember how cutesy Spyro was, right? You remember him and his buddies went on family-friendly, wholesome adventures with his trusted best friend Sparks? Now, Spyro is a prophesized once-in-a-lifetime purple dragon who must master all four elements and prevent the return of the Dark Master by defeating his evil accomplices. Hold up. Let me run that back. Let me try it with a different take. Long ago, the Dragonlands lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Dark Master's armies attacked. Only the Purple Dragon, master of all four elements, could save us. But when the world needed him most, he wasn't there. Look, I don't know how long it takes to develop a game, alright? All I do know is that Avatar The Last Airbender premiered in February 2005, and The Legend of Spyro was released in October 2006. Now, I remember playing the Legend of Spyro Trilogy when they were first being released. I don't really remember what I was thinking back then. I was 9 years old when the first game was released, but I do remember having some fun with them, despite me mocking the edginess of the redesign. So today I'd like to look through the Legend of Spyro Trilogy from the new beginning, through the endless night, and into the dawn of the dragon. So then, let's begin at the beginning. Alright, so we boot up the game. Gotta say, this is a pretty nice opening menu. Nice music, got a sense of quiet adventure. We hit a start button and everything starts going downhill with an exposition from someone who clearly does not want to be here, Gary Oldman.
In the year of the dragon, in a world beyond the realms, I, like all the others, awaited the birth of the dragon of whom the prophecies foretold. I thought we were ready. I thought they were safe. Oh, how I was wrong. Save them! Have come.
Sorry, I'm not the only one who's completely bored rigid by this intro. I can't be right. Look, I love Gary Oldman. Just to reference two of his live action roles that I've seen, fucking Sirius Black and Commissioner Gordon, they are top notch. And if you want to say that voice acting and acting in live action are different kettles of fish, that is 100% valid, and I would also redirect you to Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2, which Gary Oldman also does, and is fucking phenomenal. And even then, if you want to say there's a difference between voice acting for a video game and voice acting for a movie, I would point you to Call of Duty World at War and Call of Duty Black Ops, where Gary Oldman is Victor Reznov. So why does someone with the talent to play these four completely different roles sound so fucking bored here? Come on, Gary. You're a god knows how old badass dragon here. Come on, where's some of the flair and showmanship that you had with Lord Shen? Why do you sound so passive? You sound like my granddad passing wind. In fact, a lot of the cast in these games sound just so incredibly uninvested. Gary Oldman, he is by no means the worst offender. I know he's not doing a fantastic job of engaging me in this world, but I can tell he's fucking trying. So Gary Olddragon tells us he sent the egg of the purple dragon downriver where it was adopted by a family of dragonflies. Makes sense so far. Years passed and here we get to our real biggest mistake. And you would think it would be they gave Sparks a voice, right? You'd think it would be making him the sassy sidekick character always cracking wise, voiced by Emperor fucking Kuzco, instead of, keeping his cute little kazoo voice from the original games. Oh, no. I'm here to tell you David Spade is probably the best performance in this fucking trilogy. David Spade as Sparks sells the idea of adopted twin brother really well. Okay, I say he does his job really well. What I mean to say is that he does it with a competency you'd expect from a voice actor. Like I said, it is probably the best performance in this trilogy. So if it's not giving Sparks a voice, what is the biggest mistake of this trilogy then? Well, it would be whoever decided that Elijah Wood's performance as Spyro was fucking good enough for the final product. Okay. The fuck happened between Elijah Wood being in Lord of the Rings versus him being in Legend of Spyro? I mean, seriously, this performance, the lack of energy, lack of emotion, lack of anything. And I know, I've already said it myself. Voice acting and acting are a different kettle of fish. It's a very different type of performance, and not everyone can translate those skills between the two professions. I get it. Gary Oldman's probably like a notable exception to the rule. But holy shit, this is like a highlight reel of my only investment in this project is monetary gain.
That's fine, but I came to free Cyril. Why? What's behind this portal? Oh, it's big. But no time for sightseeing, Sparks. Time to get serious. It's me, Spyro. Not before we rescue Cyril. Yes, my name is Spyro. I don't care. Ignitus wouldn't leave me. Yeah, something like that. Not this time. This time I fight. There was something in her eyes, Ignitus. I guess you're right.
Look, I know, you can make the very reasonable argument. You can take any clips out of context to make them say whatever message you want. But it is as bad as it gets. No context can make this performance acceptable. And this is shit that I found in this game. This is just not even scraping the bottom of the... Oh my god, I don't give a fuck barrel. This is the first game. And it gets worse. So, A New Beginning starts out with Spyro and Sparks having a game of hide and seek and introducing us to how the game plays. It's a fairly easy sort of tutorial area where you can learn all the typical Spyro moves, jumping, gliding, charging, in a fairly safe, non-threatening area with some non-threatening enemies, with a bit of low stakes thrown in for fun.
All the time, Alright, let me out of here, you overgrown fungus. Spyro, seriously, lend me a hand here, will you, brother?
Geez, Sparks, I don't know. Frogweed's gotta eat too.
Spyro, whack it! Do something!
It's also what a game introduces us to the Reboot franchise's combat-orientated gameplay, which is to say that The Legend of Spyro is basically the kids' version of God of War. And by that I mean, do you know that combo in God of War? Yeah, that one. The one combo that everyone used over and over again because it was so powerful and it was like, why would you use anything else? The one combo that just every God of War player instinctively, square, square, triangle. Yeah, that one. Well, The Legend of Spyro has a similar combo, but whereas in God of War you use square, square, triangle because why would you use anything else? Legend of Spyro you have the combo because it's your only combo. Spyro's melee combat is based around mashing the circle button so much that your right thumb turns to fucking dust. Seriously, it's a repeat of circle, circle, circle. Maybe you'll mix it up and you'll hold circle to add a bit of flair and knock your target into the air, but it's essentially the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. And what I'm trying to say is combat isn't exactly thrilling. What is also not thrilling is just chasing Sparks through the swamp. When is something going to fucking happen?
Sparks!
Oh, thank God something happened. Great. Okay, awesome. A little bit more of higher stakes now. And it's also introducing us to the slightly kind of RPG-ish elements to the world, as each enemy has a name attached to their health bar, which is actually kind of cute, and shows actual thought has gone into this game, at some point. It also reveals the slightly repetitive enemy designs with these apes. These ape guys are literally the most repeated enemy design I've ever fucking seen. Each area has their own variant of the same apes, so you spend most of the game looking at 5 different flavours of the same 3 sizes of ape. I mean, sure, they did give the ape models new outfits so that they were contextualised to each particular area. So, you know, visually they are distinct from one another, but, you know, mechanically they're the exact same, so it's basically just fighting the same enemies over and over again. And now we unlock the Flame Breath. Excellent. So like in Spyro Enter the Dragonfly, Spyro has access to 4 different breath weapons throughout the game, unlocked as the story progresses, with 2 unique powers attributed to them on the square and triangle buttons. Right now we've got the Fire Breath, which can be used to, well, breathe fire, but also launch long-range fireballs which explode on contact, dealing high damage, fragmenting the pieces, and generally speaking, tanking the frame rate. Oh, you don't believe me? You don't believe me that this absolutely tanks the fucking frame rate just with one press of the triangle button? Fucking watch. I think I just fucking flashbanged myself. So with Sparks rescued, Spyro's adopted parents reveal the shocking truth that Spyro isn't a dragonfly. Shock horror! Seriously, how does he not even, question it at this point? I mean, come on, even Barry Barrington questioned his identity as an adopted family member.
Flame City.
What?
It's not that, Spyro. I believe
You don't remember Barry Barrington?
it's just that your mother
From the
died years
2002
ago.
family musical comedy, Country Bears?
The day
You know, the same movie that basically had the same kind of idea and premise that was ripped off 9 years later for the Muppets movie. The Muppets movie was 9 years ago.
So,
Fuck me.
you mean
Distraction aside, Spyro and Sparks say goodbye to their parents. Reminder, these two dragonflies raised Spyro all these years and head out on adventure.
And I thought you were a big one.
You're alive. But it's too late. Too late.
Too late for what? Who are you? Do you know me? Where do I come from? What are you? What are we? What am I?
You're a dragon. When you were just an egg, it was my job to protect you. It was my job to protect all of you.
There are others?
There were 4 of us. Guardians, that is. And we had one job. Ensure that all the eggs were hatched. It was the year of the dragon after all, and our very survival depended on those eggs. After they came for you.
They? Well, who is they? And why did they come for me?
Because the prophecies spoke of a purple dragon. A dragon born only once every 10 generations. The Dark Armies attacked, intent on destroying the eggs and killing the rest of us. And they nearly succeeded. And then they lay siege to the other islands. We were at war. For many years we fought all over the islands. Brutal clashes with the armies of the Dark Master, who was intent on preventing the prophecies from coming true. The other 3 Guardians and I led our small but valiant forces into battle after battle against our ruthless, mercenary foe. And when we were beginning to turn the tide, Cinder came. Cinder is monstrous, horrific, ferocious, a black dragon that fills the skies with terror.
Oh my god, it's still going. Look. I don't know if it's Oldman's delivery, Wood's reaction, or just the music and the style of the visual accompaniment. But holy shit, this is a boring exposition dump. Is it because Spyro has no connection to these events and therefore no reason to be emotionally invested, meaning we, the audience, also lack investment, especially considering the fact that we've not been given any reason so far to really invest in Spyro as the audience surrogate? I think that might be the reason. By removing Spyro's connection to the dragons, you remove his reason to care about the dragons and their suffering. Or at least his reason to care as deeply and intensely as he does initially. The original Spyro had this point nailed in the first 2 minutes. I'm going to use the Reignited trilogy, but my point stands. We're introduced to Spyro, shown as being playful and childish in the background. We understand the initial goal. We understand his connection to the people affected, and, it's not the deepest, most emotionally intense story, but the original Spyro was a platformer, and its villain was motivated by being called ugly by the dragons. However, with the high fantasy epic story that the Legend trilogy is trying to create here, there's really nothing separating Spyro from being just generic fantasy protagonist number 713, or Gary Oldman from being fucking generic fantasy mentor number 774. I mean, they're not really characters at this point. There's no quirk, there's nothing, it's sort of hard to explain, but they're sort of the ideas of characters, their stand-ins, their cardboard cutouts, but there's nothing to invest in emotionally, you know? Like, if I'm not invested emotionally in these characters, why the fuck should I give a shit about their problems?
Cinder's soldiers must have knocked the other two statues out of place. Heathens.
What other two statues?
On the other side of this door are two statues just like these. When all four statues are positioned correctly, the door opens.
Wait, shit, a door won't open? Oh, well, now I'm fucking invested. And thus, Spyro's first task in saving the world, opening a door. God, don't you just hate game physics like this? When you have to push an object into place but the geometry of the shape in question is rounded, and the game developers didn't quite realise that they've left just the smallest point on the arc of that circular exterior shell where you can just actually push without slipping off the side and ramming full speed into Jupiter. I'm nitpicking, yes, but this frustrates the shit out of me. Leave me alone. So Spyro manages to open the door. Thank fucking God for that, because, I was really worried we weren't going to be able to open that door, but then we opened that door. I'm invested. It's at this point we're introduced to the gems. As you might expect from a fancy beat-em-up style game, the gems are no longer a quantifiable measure of progress. There are 4 different colours of gem. Red gems to restore health, green gems to restore breath power, blue gems to build up experience, and pink gems to charge up Spyro's Fury to create a powerful AoE blast attack. It's also at this point where the main objective of the game is laid out for us. Travel to 3 different lands, defeat the forces of the evil Dark Dragon Cinder, and rescue the other Dragon Masters. 2 hours to get to the point the first Spyro has in 2 minutes. So yeah, the pacing in this game is a fucking slog. It is so slow at times, and the combat really doesn't help with how repetitive that slog is. Because instead of being an open world explorative platformer, Spyro is now a linear corridor with some light platforming here and there. Combat is just padding for what would otherwise be a very empty and very quick game, and it's useless padding too because there's no consequences for death. If you die at any point in the game, you respawn 5 feet from where you died straight after. And that includes in combat. The encounter doesn't reset or anything, you just die, come back, and the enemies are still at the same health as they were before you died. I mean, even in areas where you'd expect a challenge, like the boss fights, even that's not fun. Beating the shit out of the bosses, and feeling overpowered as you overcome these giant titanic creatures is boring. Yeah, the game has bosses, and guess what? They suck. Remember how I mentioned that the game's combat revolves around mashing your thumb to dust on a circle button despite, being a motherfucking dragon who can breathe fire and shit? Yeah, the boss's fights are essentially that, but with one addition. That addition being you spend the whole fucking level building up your Fury meter to blow it all on the boss, and no, it does not feel more satisfying to having held out on it for all that time. There's a joke about ejaculation there, and I'm not going to touch it. As you travel through each new stage, Spyro will unlock new breath weapons, which all have slightly different effects. The Ice Breath, which freezes enemies and shoots shards of ice at them. The Earth Breath, which is basically just a shotgun blast from Spyro's mouth. It also launches whirlwinds that launch enemies into the air. And then there's the Lightning Breath, aka the fucking game breaker. You see, the Electric Breath, in addition to linking between enemies, has the side effect of dragging enemies from side to side with how you move Spyro. Why is this game breaking? Because the enemies have fiberglass ankles. Here's a montage of me absolutely wrecking house with these enemies just by throwing them off not bottomless pits like these chumps here, but the tiniest falls imaginable. So these enemies can survive me beating the ever-loving piss out of them to within an inch of their life, and it takes them 20 minutes to fucking die. But they fall on their tailbone, they're done, they're out. They've got a fuck. Nope, I'm not doing that. Tailbone? Fuck no. That costs insurance. So you meet and rescue the other Dragon Masters, and every time you get them back to the temple, you get locked into a tutorial segment where you learn how to use the different breath weapons, and it's just so slow. It is the same tutorial over and over again. Use your breath weapon behind this line. Chase down your enemies. Use your breath weapon in this really specific scenario that's never going to be useful ever. Beat the shit out of the enemies until you charge up your Fury Blast so you can press one button. Can we just rescue the last fucking Dragon Master, please? I am so bored.
We've got to find them. Help ignite us.
If I gave a shit about either of their characters, let alone their relationship to each other, I'd give a shit. But I don't. As it stands, I don't give a crap about either of these characters, I don't give a crap about their relationship, I just want this game to end. Which, you know, that's really what you want to hear from your game reviewer. I want this game to fucking end, please. That's a show of confidence. So here we have our final showdown between the villain and the hero, and, well, it's supposed to mean something, but it doesn't. You see, the Legend of Spyro has this thing called absent villain syndrome. It's where a story spends its whole time building up the big bad evil guy, but never allowing them and the hero to interact, so the first time they really get to meet and talk is during their final battle. Now, this sucks because the hero and the villain don't have the rapport or any kind of relationship for a complicated epic conclusion. And even if you don't have the hero and the villain interact, at least let us, the audience, get to know them so we can sort of, like, you know, look forward to their final encounter. Like, going to an entirely different series, Ratchet and Clank, okay? Ratchet and Clank, they built up Chairman Drake throughout the entirety of the first game. But Ratchet and Clank never met him until they finally came face to face on Velden. But we, the audience, got to know Chairman Drake throughout the game because we saw various cutscenes of him interacting with various people. We got to know him as a character. So, despite the fact that, you know, Chairman Drake wasn't seen interacting with Ratchet and Clank, we still got to see him, we still got to know him, and therefore it made it more satisfying to meet and beat him. Here, not the case. What this game tries to do is set up Cinder as this mysterious evil bad guy, but also tries to make it seem like she and Spyro have this connection and hidden shared past. However, she and Spyro have no time to interact on screen together until this final confrontation, and Cinder herself is only seen on screen in the last act. So not only does Spyro not have any connection with her, but neither do we, the audience. So instead of being a powerful, meaningful villain with a backstory and a character arc that we were invested in, she's just generic big bad evil guy number 312. Essentially, all the game developers managed to do with Cinder is create an entire generation of Scalies who see her as their big titty goth waifu. Oh, you poor sweet summer child. You don't know what a Scaly is, do you? Okay. You know furries? Okay, Scalies are the same, but they prefer dragons and lizards and shit. You know, they're the type of people who, instead of fucking Khajiit in Skyrim, they'll fuck an Argonian. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. Just before we clear that up. Yeah, so the game falls flat on its face when it tries to pull this shit with the final boss.
There was something in her eyes, Ignitus. Something familiar.
There should be, Spyro. You and Cinder share more than you know. You see, after I took your egg to the Silver River, I returned to the grotto to find utter chaos. The other Guardians had been overrun, and all the other eggs had been smashed by the Dark Master's forces. All except one.
Cinder?
I'm afraid so.
And because of the absent villain syndrome, I don't give a fuck. And because of the larger wood acting like its namesake, you know, a lump of wood, I double don't give a fuck. So we get our true final boss battle in this weird fifth dimension bullshit. Beat the shit out of Cinder, she returns to her true form, game over. That's The Legend of Spyro: New Beginning. kind of a hot mess. Not entirely unenjoyable, I guess, but it's so slow and it's pacing. The combat is repetitive as hell. The pace is so slow and the characters are so boring. The only character with any life and personality is Sparks, and even he gets annoying after a little while. The environments, I guess, are kind of pretty looking, and at least visually distinct from one another, and it at least plays well for having boring gameplay. It is mechanically sound. I would like to point out that I did have some fun with this game, but it was mostly just the same repetitive, boring combat encounters over and over and over again. And there's no challenge with the combat encounters in this game, because if you die in this game, you will literally respawn just outside of the combat arena, but the enemies will have the same health as when you just died before. If anything, dying in this game is a fucking hack, because it basically means you get full health and full magic, and the enemies are still just sort of like at the same level they were when you died. So dying has no penalty and consequence. There's no collectibles, so there's no replay value in it, playing through the game over again just to see if you can find something off the beaten path. And there's no New Game Plus anyway. I mean, 2005, it's a PlayStation New Game. You'd be hard-pressed to actually get a New Game Plus out of a game like this, but you don't get anything carried over. You don't get anything extra for playing the game a second time. It's just this, over and over again. It's the same boring, lifeless characters in the same boring, lifeless world. That's why Legend of Spyro New Beginning gets a 32.
But I've got a bad feeling.
I wish I could say it's over there, but oh no. We have another 2 of these to go.
I've seen this place before. The Well of Souls.
This is an evil place, Spyro. The celestial moons are counting down, and time is running out. The night of eternal darkness approaches.
Sometimes legend is forced upon us.
Something is happening, Sparks. I can't explain it.
A young dragon must face the ultimate evil.
Long have we waited. Long have we suffered. But soon, our master will return.
We gotta get out of here, now!
I know this is not the path you would choose for me. But I have to walk my own path. And do what I know is right.
Clear your mind, Spyro. And release the firestorm within you. It is your destiny to harness the powers of the elements. The purple dragon can wield many abilities that others cannot. Including time itself.
Elijah Wood as Spyro.
Get close to me! Now!
Billy West as Sparks.
Ah! The nightmare never ends!
And Gary Oldman as Ignitus.
If the Dark Master escapes, a shadow will fall over the land. I'm afraid we might be too late. These are dangerous times for a dragon to be wandering about.
This is the exact same game as The Legend of Spyro. Like, seriously, exact same combat, exact same platforming, exact same bland, lifeless wooden performances, but believe it or not, the game is even more tedious. You might think it's because it's repetitive of its predecessor, or, you know, I might be using hyperbole here. I wish it was that. You do not understand how sad I am that I lack the ability to tell you I was making this shit up. At first glance, the combat appears to be the exact same, but then you notice, hey, I'm dying a lot more often, and that the enemies get up a lot faster, and hey, I'm not respawning exactly where I died either, and is it just me, or are there a lot more bad guys than there were before? If you notice all that, then congratulations, you've noticed all the developers' attempts at taking a hot, broken, unbalanced mess in the favour of the player, and tweaking it so that the game is now a hot, unbalanced, broken mess the player no chance of conquering. The enemy types also have less variety than before. Instead of 5 visually distinct but mechanically identical ape enemies, you now have one type of ape enemy that you fight in the first and last days of the game, and then these fucking pirate dog enemies who use the exact same 3 models that take up the middle chunk. So now there's about as much variety in the gameplay as there are in the enemies. No, before you ask, the enemies don't have fiberglass ankles. Not that it would have mattered if they did, because the breath weapons are all different in this game anyway. Which I think is probably the biggest change from the New Beginning. I think they might have done that to make the breath weapons a little bit more distinct from one another than they were in the New Beginning, because they were all just kind of interchangeable. The square breath weapon is now the ranged attack, and the triangle is more melee focused. Obviously the flame breath is the same as before, but now instead of a screen-breaking firebomb, there's a flaming dash. The ice breath is now charged up ice bomb, which instantly kisses enemies, and comes with an icy tailspin that sends enemies flying backwards in slow motion. The earth breath is now a flail that Spyro can spin around him, along with a ground pound that throws enemies into the air. And the electric breath is a charged up, launched, remote detonated electric blast and a spinning electric tornado move, which I've got to give them credit for. I mean, you know, the breath weapons do actually feel a lot more distinct from one another. They no longer feel like 4 different flavours of the exact same dessert. It's actually, you know, one of the best improvements of the game. The game kicks off an intermediate amount of time after the first game, with Spyro currently completely depowered after the end of the first game. Because that's always the best part of these games, isn't it? Recovering the powers you spent an entire fucking game collecting the first time around? Yeah, you want to do that again? You want to do it again? Yeah? You want to fucking go for the fucking point of the first fucking game again? So we have Spyro waking up at the temple and Sparks waking up with a new voice. This time he's played by Billy West, and once again, he's the best performance in this game because, once again, no one else seems to give a shit.
Spyro, you okay, buddy? Hey, I want to sleep too, but I didn't mean now. Let's at least get inside. It's dark out, man, and I don't like it. Hello? Anyone home? Yoo-hoo!
And now Spyro has narcolepsy. Good to know. This dream state, by the way, is how Spyro gets his tutorials for his new breath weapons in this game, and it's pretty much the same as the original one. It also introduces us to another mechanic that the game throws at us, Dragon Time. Slowing down time in the second installment of the franchise for a small period. Okay. That's another God of War parallel to throw on the pile, and that's a little bit of a suspect one, not gonna lie. So Spyro and Sparks get a vision to look for this old dragon called the Chronicler, and then a bunch of inconsequential stuff happens and they end up there. That's not hyperbole, by the way. It doesn't fucking matter. Nothing that happens to Spyro, between him setting off from the temple to find the Chronicler, to him finding and meeting the Chronicler, fucking matters. None of it matters. Spyro kills a giant tree spirit, is kidnapped by pirates, forced to participate in gladiator-style combat, burns down a fleet of flying airships, and it does not fucking matter. It is all filler and padding, and it is just the fucking worst, because it just does not fucking matter. Like, I don't mind telling you that when I played this game when I was younger, I got so bored that I stopped playing. Like, this is me playing this game for fun when I was younger, and I got so fed up with it, I stopped playing. And honestly, if I wasn't reviewing it this time around, I'd have stopped playing at this point again too. Anyway, Spyro ends up going to this evil mountain where this evil ape king lives and has apparently got Cinder trapped and is preparing for the return of this evil purple dragon. This final boss fight, by the way, is absolute horse stick, because you start the fight off with no magic and your fury meter is empty, despite the fact that I had both full by the time that I reached this boss fight. So they give you a handicap in the last fight on the fucking game with no warning whatsoever. And then in phase 2 and 3, Spyro unlocks this evil purple dragon power, and then the mountain collapses. Honestly, I don't care at this point. I really don't. Game over. Fucking move on, please. Thank you. Look, this is objectively even worse than A New Beginning. I know I didn't spend anywhere near as long on this game as I did A New Beginning, but honestly, what else do I have to say? The gameplay is almost a carbon copy, except now the balance is skewed in the favour of your enemies. Once again, the performances are so bland and dull, like especially Elijah Wood. Good fucking god. Don't believe me that Frodo Baggins is basically a hat stand? Here is a highlight reel of Wood's I do not give a fuck performance, taken from just the final boss fight.
I've made it this far, haven't I? You don't need to do this, Cinder. I can't. What have I done? I'm sorry. I couldn't stop. Just go. Oh no, we're trapped.
Those were all real takes that the game developer said, fuck it, it'll do. I weep for humanity. I will say that at the very least the Eternal Light fixes its issue with absent villain syndrome. Gaul, despite not having anywhere near the emotional weight behind him that he should, being the one who kidnapped Cinder and is the reason Spyro grew up separate from the rest of the dragons, but you know, he's there. We get to see him throughout the game, we get a sense of his presence, we get to know him a bit. Granted, it's still shit, but it's so much better than Cinder in the New Beginning. So, in a strange way, the Eternal Light is a little bit better than A New Beginning in some ways. I mean, it's still the same game, essentially. When you strip it down to its bare essentials, it's the exact same game. Except it's harder. And it's therefore more frustrating. And I end up getting more bored and annoyed with it very fast, and I'm done talking about this game. This game gets a 21.
Usually, I would say ignore her, but she's making sense this time.
Okay, one more. We can do this. One more.
Even in the darkest of times, there is always hope.
For the first time ever, fight evil with both Spyro and Cinder.
It has begun.
Team up and fly anytime as living, breathing weapons of explosive destruction in your quest to defeat the forces of darkness.
Sometimes when all seems lost, a light shines through the darkness, and we are reminded courage can turn the tides of war.
The Legend of Spyro, Dawn of the Dragon.
Oh dear God, it's got partner AI. No, not this game. Not this trilogy. I am not gonna keep playing this game if this game in this trilogy has a fucking partner AI. No, that's just not fair, game. That's just not fair. Okay, so let's get the obvious out of the way. Dawn of the Dragon was made by a completely new set of developers, and everything about the previous games has been ripped up by the boards. The franchise has been given a renovation, complete with an aged up Spyro and Cinder, so all the fanfic writers can write lemon fics about them without feeling as gross. But they are still teenagers, so if you did write a lemon fic about these two, it's still gross. And if you don't know what I mean by a lemon fic, you poor child. You pure, innocent baby. You are too pure for the internet. And for this channel, you've made a horrible decision. This is filth. So the graphics are definitely improved, I'll say that much. I mean, you can tell it's still the same world, but it's definitely got a more aged up feel about it. It's definitely recognisable as being part of the series in that sense, so there's that. What isn't recognisable is where the game starts. I thought Spyro and Cinder were trapped under the Well of Souls. Where the fuck is this place? Also, what the fuck are these green moss things? Also, who the fuck is that shitty guy in the background? With the bow. Oh, wait, I know who that shitty guy in the background with the bow is. He's generic fantasy ranger archetype number 509. So Spyro and Cinder are carried away to the mines of Moria, it looks like, and are chained together, which, yes, means you will spend the entire game tethered to the AI companion, which, you know, in terms of AI companions I've seen in games, Dawn of the Dragon isn't the worst. The AI does its job fairly well, it doesn't get caught on anything either, so that's a plus. The AI just isn't very aggressive. What is, however, aggressive is how the combat system in the game has been completely remodeled. Now it actually is Dire God of War, with Spyro and Cinder being capable of light and heavy melee attacks and grapple attacks. And the grapple attacks are fucking amazing. It's like the dragons have just grabbed a chew toy and are just throwing them around the place. It's fucking hilarious. I mean, it would be hilarious if, you know, the grapple was decent, or accurate, or there was a way you could tell if you were able to grapple an enemy, you know. But you get none of that. So that sucks. The combos in the game aren't great either, to be honest. Sure, it's better than just one button over and over again, but you can't unlock new combos either, so it's the same melee combat throughout the entire game once again. Which, you know, I would like a little bit more variety in the movesets of my God of War clone, but if we're just dealing with these guys over and over again, I think it will suffice. Okay, maybe we need some more firepower. Luckily, we get it in the form of the Ranger from before, who's revealed to be Hunter? Wait, are we talking about Hunter as in from Spyro on the PlayStation 1 Hunter? We're talking about Hunter, the same Hunter, right? Hunter from Avalar? The biggest himbo of the PlayStation 1? I'm really confused here. Yeah, they referenced Hunter in the Eternal Nights, didn't mention it because, well, it wasn't that important, but Spyro and Sparks have travelled to so many different lands in the previous games, and they only thought to include Hunter now in the third game. There was so many more characters you could have introduced to make this reboot just a little bit more interesting and a little less generic, just add a little bit of the Spyro flavour back into this universe. And I don't mean, you know, other dragons, and I don't mean villains, I mean other members of the fucking Spyro universe. Like, just listen, hear me out here. Imagine if Tall Plains was actually Avalar reimagined, and we met Hunter here instead of in this forgettable clusterfuck. Or imagine we got to meet Bentley the Yeti chilling out in Dante's freezer, or Sergeant Byrd finding off Cinder's forces at Munitions Forge. Heck, how about even Moneybags running bets on that pirate gladiator pit? All I'm saying is, you've done it with Hunter, why not do it with any of the other cast members? I mean, yeah, it might come across as like pandering or unoriginal, like you're just recycling these characters from the earlier franchise, but at the same time, why not? I mean, you've done it with Hunter here, and you just made him a forgettable Legolas clone. Why not do it with any of the other characters, is all I'm asking. Well, at least they threw a lampshade on Spark's constantly changing voice.
Hey, Spyro! Man, you're alive! Sparks! It's good to see you too. You okay?
You know, a little stiff. Voice keeps changing, but I'm good.
Yeah, it keeps changing, alright, Sparks. This time you're voiced by Wayne Brady. Sure, let's get another funny guy to tell barely any humorous jokes and have no personality whatsoever, and still somehow be the most competent voice actor of the bunch. So I mentioned the partner AI earlier, and that's because the whole game is played with Spyro and Cinder chained to each other, which, if you're playing two-player, means you control one of the dragons. If you're single-player, however, you can switch between the two of them at will. I mean, they control the exact same, except that they have different breath weapons, which, hey, this is something at least. You don't have to re-unlock any of your powers this time around. You just have them from the start, which, thank fuck for that.
Hunter, give us a moment to gather our strength.
You might want to stand back. This can get weird.
It is fascinating how your kind draws strength from these crystals. Dragons are truly remarkable.
Yeah, you say that now, till one tries to kill you. And by one, I mean her.
I am aware of Cinder's past, but Ignitus trusts her, and that's good enough for me.
Go on, Cinder.
Spyro, as a rare purple dragon, you can wield many abilities that others cannot. Now it is time to awaken these powers within you. Fire, electricity, ice, and earth. Cinder, while most other dragons can master only a single element, your exposure to the darkness has gifted you with abilities most uncommon. Poison, fear, wind, and shadow.
So Cinder has dark, edgy powers. Got it. With the addition of Cinder's breath weapons, there is now the option of 8 different breath attacks to use throughout the game, so there is more variety in the magic system. And no, I'm not going to go through it all, because honestly, that would be tedious at this point. And now the Fury system from the previous games has also changed. It's no longer a simple area of effect blast you save up and wait to use on the area boss, but it's a charged up super breath weapon that Spyro and Cinder build up through combat. Kind of like the rage mechanic in God of War. These comparisons are valid, shut up. I mean, my god, there's even quick time events in this game now. Unlike in God of War, however, these quick time events aren't satisfying. Not as regular combat either. You see, there's no feedback or weight to any of Spyro or Cinder's attacks. There's no sort of power behind the damage, no response when fighting the enemies. It just felt like going through paper enemies over and over and over again. And the boss fights are even worse. But I will give Dawn of the Dragon props. It is no longer a straightforward open road. There are several openish areas in the game where you can roam and explore and search. Granted, they aren't the biggest, and they exist only for the mission or chapter you're in, but they are used for more than that. Sure, there are random enemy encounters, but there are also optional extras, including, but not limited to, elite enemy encounters with specific damage immunities for more blue upgrade crystals. Then there are the giant red and green crystals, which are used to upgrade Spyro and Cinder's health and magic pool. But the thing I love most is the addition of armor that you can equip to Spyro and Cinder to gain bonuses. This right here was honestly an inspired idea. Each dragon gets 3 different sets of armor that come in 3 pieces, and each set of armor is unique from each other, and honestly, it was my favourite part of the game. It's like that point in Dark Souls where you're not picking armor pieces and shields based on like the area you're going into or specific damage immunities or armor rating. No, you're just picking whatever looks coolest. You're playing Fashion Souls at this point. I have no care about the optional bonuses that I get from this armor piece. I just pick it because it looks cool. After they escape the underground with the aid of hunters, Spyro and Cinder sit down to ask some questions.
The Dark Master. He's returned, hasn't he?
I'm afraid so. Just shortly after your disappearance, he struck quickly, fueled by hatred and malice, reclaiming the throne at the temple, which, through some dark magic, he now suspends above the land, a symbol of his dominance. We've been at war ever since, and every day, his forces grow stronger. Spyro, you are lucky to be alive. All of you. That was no ordinary creature back there. It was an ancient earth golem from the deep. They are the embodiment of destruction summoned by Malefor himself. These are dark times.
He needs to be stopped. I have to stop him.
And then suddenly they all get knocked out, and now we're in the Valley of Side Quests. I'm not even joking. This area, Avalar, it's like side quest hell. In order to get past Hunter's pissed off dad here, you have to find one of them missing people. But he's broken his ankle, so you have to get him on board a barge, which you have to pull from way downstream. But to launch the barge, you need to bring 2 counterweights to the landing stage. But the counterweights are locked up, and the only person who has the key is the hermit guy who lives in the mountains, so Spyro and Cinder have to go find him. I know video game side quests can be ridiculous and all, but can we talk about the level of bullshit going on here? Like, does this barge belong to the village? If not, why do they know so much about it? If so, why do they not have the key in the village with them? Why have these counterweights so locked up at all? Why is the launching stage so far downstream? So many questions. So many questions. Will any of them be answered? No. Do any of them matter? No. Is this useless padding? Most definitely. Okay, fast forwarding, skipping all this bullshit. Shortcut to the Dragon City. There's a Dragon City. That's the first I've heard of that. I don't know why this is just being brought up. Honestly, the way Ignitus was talking in A New Beginning, it made it seem like Spyro, Cinder, and the 4 Elders were the last dragons alive. So to learn that there's an entire city of dragons, I mean, I don't know. It almost feels like this is just an opportunity to have a blatant rip-off from the Siege of Gondor from Return of the King. Oh, don't tell me that none of this looks like that scene from Return of the King. The White Stone City, the Brooding Mountain in the distance, the fucking battering ram, come on. I also find it weird how throughout the Siege of the Dragon City, You'll see the other Dragon Masters, but none of them will really react to Spyro and Cinder's return. Like, even when everything calms down, they meet up with Spyro and Cinder and they're just like, oh, you're back, young dragon. Oh, hello, good, yes, nice to see you again. What, yes, let's carry on. What, yes, no, you've not been gone for 3 years. We haven't been worried about whether or not you've been alive or dead. No, nothing whatsoever. Yes, let's go fight evil. What, yes, back to the job. I'm skipping over a lot, I know, but it just kind of started dragging a bit here. I mean, you even have that big golem thing from before show up, and now he has a building for a hand. Once again, the lack of feedback from the attacks and the lack of weight behind your strike shows up. There's no fun when you don't feel like you're hitting something other than a slightly firm sponge. Can I just say that this golem represents one of 2 of the fucking proper boss fights in this game? The other one being Malifaux, and again, absent villain syndrome. Malifaux hasn't even fucking shown up yet.
Citizens of Warfang, congratulations. You shall be the first to witness the resurrection of the Destroyer and the end of the world.
Malifaux. By our ancestors. What is that?
Okay. Can maybe, Malfoy, maybe just, yeah, I literally can't understand you. The main villain of the game, of the series, and I literally cannot understand a single fucking word out of his fucking mouth. Are you serious? Like, are you seriously serious right now? The main villain of the trilogy, the one you've been building up for 3 games at this point, and the first time we see him, it is a close-up of a letterboxing over his fucking eyes, and a voice that is so modulated to fucking back, I cannot even understand a word it's fucking saying. This is our first introduction to Malifaux. The fuck? It is so disappointing. This was meant to be the antithesis to Spyro, the purple dragon gone rogue, and yet his words are so garbled because they wanted to make it sound more evil, I genuinely can't tell who the fuck is playing him. And this fucking hurts. Because I genuinely believe there's a competent performance under all that modulation. Do you want to know how I know that? Do you want to know who played Malifaux underneath all that modulation and audio editing that you can't even fucking tell if it's fucking English? Mark Hamill. No, I'm not kidding. They did this to Mark Hamill. They ruined Mark Hamill's fucking delivery. Out of all the bland, monotonous, empty performances in this trilogy, you take the one man who probably has the biggest voice acting career behind him out of anyone in the cast, and you do this to his performance. Are you fucking kidding me? I literally have to take context clues from what happens around the scene to understand what he's fucking talking about. Which I gather is that he's released an ancient evil being called the Destroyer, basically an even bigger golem-like creature to bring about the apocalypse. So they wait for the Destroyer to come back around, flood the dam, and destroy the black crystals that cover its body. I just summed up 3 levels for you there, by the way, because honestly, we're getting out of interesting shit to talk about in these games. The story is just very easy to just sort of... There's nothing interesting happening anymore in this story. Not really. Like these tiny little moments in the levels, tiny little cutscenes. No, they're not interesting. I'm just skimming over that shit. I want it to fucking end. I'm trying to be fair and honest here, guys, but nothing interesting happens in these 3 levels. there's nothing worth talking about in the last half of the game. It's the same fairly interesting level design mixed with the same fairly okay combat mixed with the same fairly terrible characters. And then, after even all that, the destroyer isn't even destroyed. Yet, for some reason, the destroyer keeps moving even after all the black crystals inside it were destroyed. So Ignitus offers to take Spyro and Cinder close to Malifaux's lair so they can fight him face to face, leading to this heartfelt goodbye.
We have to confront Malifaux, don't we?
I see no other way. The belt is weakened, and this may be our only chance to break through.
Yeah, if we aren't incinerated first.
Oh, come on, it doesn't sound so bad. We've been through worse, right?
Sparks? You can't come with me.
What? But I always go with you.
Spyro was right. You wouldn't survive in there.
You need to make sure the others reach the underground city in time. You've been there before. You can guide them.
It's important, Sparks.
But you need me.
Right now, there are others that need you more.
Cinder, you have to promise me you will look after him. We've been through a lot together.
I promise.
And then we all say goodbye to Ignitus in this completely unearned death scene.
Spyro, Cinder, I have never done right by either of you. Allow me to do this.
What are you saying?
My path ends here, but yours lies beyond this. Draw strength from each other and follow your heart. It will never fail you. Now go. Go. Go!
Ignitus! No!
Spyro, stop! It's too late. You can't do anything for him now.
No, he isn't gone.
Spyro, let it go.
No.
No! Spyro, don't!
You can't stop me.
You're right. Only you can do that. Please, Spyro, don't do this. We have to go on. He wanted us to.
It wasn't supposed to be like this. I feel so alone.
There is so much wrong with this scene. I can't even process it all. One, we barely have any on-screen interactions between Spyro and Ignitus to make this surrogate father-son relationship matter. Two, Elijah Wood's delivery is so fucking wooden it might as well be a sculpture. And three, wasn't Spyro raised from an egg by Sparks' parents? Yes, Spyro has two actual loving parents who raised him from birth, so why is there this father-son dynamic between him and Ignitus? Where the fuck even are Spyro and Sparks' parents? Are you telling me that neither of them went to check on them, to go back home, to see them, mention them at all? You know, you'd have thought that Spyro's actual fucking parents would have had a bigger impact on the plot of this series. Whatever, let's just finish this game off. I have to fight Malifaux now.
At long last, my guests arrive. Please, come in. Such determination to get you.
And any story I could glean from this cutscene is completely lost because of Mark Hamill's absolutely butchered delivery, so we're just gonna skip this. And Christ alive, I don't understand the mechanics of this fight in the slightest. Like, this is the only boss battle where you fight in the air, and it's some kind of corridor which Malifaux keeps flying to either end of. You've got no control over the movement of the Y-axis. Malifaux's attacks have no telegraph, so you can't react to his attacks, and even if you could, it'd do nothing because there doesn't seem to be any iframes, and Malifaux's attacks cover the entire spread of the fucking stage. Like, seriously, controls are limited, dodging basically does fuck all, and Malifaux does ridiculous damage. Oh, wait. I switched to Spyro's Ice Breath and now the fight is a piece of piss. Fuck it, I'm too tired to care. Then the Destroyer finishes its work, world starts ending, Spyro, Cinder and Malifaux end up at the core of the world, Spyro summons the power of the Purple Dragon to save the world, and... any point in this game was that hinted at? Seriously, I'm asking. At the most, this was an adventure of them building their friendship. Where the fuck did this romance come from? No, you know what? Game's over. Trilogy's over. I'm out. I'm done. I'm outie. Done. Honestly, Dawn of the Dragon might have been the most refreshing game in the trilogy, but seeing as how they basically renovated the entire core of the game, that's not surprising. I will give it credit by saying the story's a little more interesting than just go to this place, fight this person, and the levels are a lot more complex than just go fight the boss at the end, but still we have the same bland performances draining all the life away. Plus the combat is so unsatisfying. The idea of being able to control Spyro and Sinnet at the same time is neat, and maybe if I played this game with someone it might be more satisfying. Or it might be less boring because I'd have someone to distract me from the long periods of nothing going on. Like, this game isn't the worst. And it's not the worst out of the trilogy, no. But the bland performances just suck any atmosphere that this game managed to build up. And it does manage to build up some small amount of atmosphere. But the bland performances and character just drain that little bit of character and atmosphere the world manages to create all away. Like, even the enemies. The enemies in this game are so fucking generic. Like, say what you will about the ape enemies from the previous Spyro games. Like, you know, you could say their models were recycled to fuck and used over and over again. There was just no sense of originality between the different ape creatures, but they gave some character. There was backstory, there was lore about these ape creatures. They at least had distinct personality. These generic grublin fucks, they're just so bland. Everything about this game, despite it being given this really impressive facelift, it's just leaving the entire thing feeling fucking hollow. Which is a shame, because I liked some of the ideas they put forward in Dawn of the Dragon. But, with that being said, Dawn of the Dragon gets a dark rating of 27.
Spyro, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't be. It's over now.
Okay, so playing through games from my childhood is fun and everything, but these have left me so goddamn drained and so bored, and fuck it. Is there anything new coming out?
The time draws near.
Right, yeah, I just remembered I have work to do.